So guys, the next build is going to be a Dribbble clone, and welcome. So with this app, I'm pretty excited about it because there's quite a bit of moving parts. We've got some cool view counts going on, commenting, liking actual shots. These shots are just off of my own Dribbble profile. Definitely not mocking the app 100%, but there are some cool quirks I messed around with just to add some cool interactivity as, say, you respond to a lower screen resolution. Adding a new shot itself kind of has a drag and drop feel to it instead of just a traditional file picker. So I could just demonstrate if I were to add this. There's classes and stuff going on to make all that happen. So we drag and dropped it there. It displays automatically. You give it a title. You can create it just like that. We've got user roles, of course. And if you noticed here, all the user information ties up to your comment or your posts or shots, I should say. And besides that, the account page, I didn't quite build that out. Simply ran out of time. Maybe that's something you guys can do to extend this. So right now, the user account can only post shots and like other shots or comment on shots. But there is no profile section yet, which is kind of a big part of Dribbble, but I decided just to build the feed aspect of it to start with. So let's look into the comments section. This was a shot show template. So like when you click through to see the shot full size, you get some analytics here on the right. You can like it from this point of view too. To like it, it'll just go ahead and do that. It reloads the page and renders the heart with one like, and of course the style changes. You do need to be signed in to do these things. So if I were to log out, some of these things would require me to log in. So that's kind of Devise helping us, which we've used in a previous version, previous video series. But essentially you can, of course, add a shot, a description. A user can comment on your shot. I'm logged in as this current user here, and I'm able to delete my own comment. If I were to log out and log in as the person, John Smith here, that created that shot, do that real quick. I can edit the shot, but I can't delete that comment. So that's kind of nice. But I can comment on my own shot, of course, too. So that's just a lot of functionality going on there, that a lot of these gems and stuff out there that kind of lends us a hand to do those things. I did use a new image upload provider in this series that was new to me. It's called Carrier Wave. I used to use one called Paperclip. Similar gems. I think Carrier Wave's a little more opinionated from what I heard. So I guess it's up to you what you want to use. But let's go ahead and dive right in. We can get to the nitty gritty here. But real quick, I'll show you if you edit a shot, you can do the same thing. Drag and drop. This image will update. And then you can just go ahead and update the shot. So cool. So let's get going. This will be probably a pretty long series for now. Again, this is, if you were logged out, you'll see this hero banner as well on the homepage. So that's kind of a nifty thing. But yeah, this is a long series, so let's get rolling. Biggest thing will be getting everything set up to start with, and then we can start getting all the functionality laid out before us. There's quite a few gems that we'll be using. So I'm going to cd into this directory and do a Rails new, and we'll do Dribbble clone. And of course, this will be on GitHub, so you guys can download this entire source. So definitely refer to that if you run into issues, or feel free to comment on the video over the blog. And while that works, we'll get everything set up. I think I'm gonna save time by not hunting and finding gems by just downloading. I have my current demo of this app, the one we just looked at, up right now. So I'm gonna basically steal the gems from this one that I added, and we'll use those in this project. I'll go through them though, so we aren't confused. So let me go back to, there we go. So I want to cd into the Dribbble clone. Okay, and then from here we need to establish basically what we're going to use in terms of gems. So to do that, I'm going to open this project in Sublime. So I've got both open here. The old one, the one you looked at before here, and then this current one is our brand new app. So I'm going to paste in some of those gems we used. And there's a few more for the development side of things that I'm going to add to these three, which I've used in the past few videos if you guys have followed along. So I'll paste that in the development group. So these are pretty, well, they're not explanatory, self-explanatory, but the better errors one gives us better errors. So there's that. Guard gives us essentially a way to process our files when we do something. So think of it as like gulp for Ruby. So that with that gem, I have an extension called guard live reload, and that one actually allows the browser to refresh when I make changes. Moving forward, we are using Bulma as a framework. I've been a big fan of them and what they have. So I don't know, I just like the style out of the box. And for this kind of work, prototyping and whatnot, it's just easier to use a framework. Normally, I'd roll my own CSS though. Devise is what gives us our user roles and accounts and all of the nifty helpers with those. So we can show and display certain things based on a user's privileges. Carrier wave is that gem I spoke of before, which helps with image uploads. Simple form gives us simpler forms. And Mini Magic is a image extension. It's kind of a image resizing optimization library that it can be extended to carrier wave. So we'll make use of that. Impressionist is pretty neat. It counts basically, well, it does more than this, but we're using it on this app as a view count for this record. So the shot in this case. And I need a jQuery to work with some of the interactivity here. I tried to go as much vanilla JavaScript as I could, but some of it just got to be over my head, to be honest. So jQuery kind of saves the day there, and that's pretty much its purpose. Gravatar Image Tag, I used this in the last series. This is just a convenient way to display users' Gravatar based on their email. We'll be pulling that from their email they sign up with in Devise. And then acts as votable basically gives us the ability to like the shots. So a few of these definitely require some setup, and I think this first part of the video is going to be more or less doing that. So I'll walk you through that right now. If you're copying and pasting like I am, make sure you save this file, and then we'll run bundle. You can just write bundle, or I just do bundle install initially. So it'll go and grab all those gems for us. And we can verify they're all there. It looks like it. So that's great. Cool. So I need at least 3 tabs open typically. So I'm using iTerm right now. I was on Hyper, but I've switched to iTerm. I'm just liking it more. So the first one I typically run the server on. So I'll do Rails S there. And this second one is for that guard live reload file, but we haven't initialized that with the guard file yet, so we need to actually set that up. So with guard installed, we need to do a guard init live reload. And it might throw back a warning. That's okay. So we have guard and live reload added, so we can go edit that file now. And you really shouldn't need to edit it out of the box. It kind of works with you, and you can use different types of file types, even if you're using Slim or Haml. So that's something to keep in account. So at this point, we can go ahead and run bundle exec guard. And it should watch for the browser changes. I don't believe I do have live reload set up on this browser, so we should be all set. This localhost is going to revert to the default Rails one, I believe, unless I'm running another one. I'm running that server from before, so I need to stop that one. and run it here again. There we go. It's given us a error for simple form as well. Since we have that installed, we can just go ahead and run the generation here. So I'm going to do that in this next tab, the third one here. Just so we can get that carried on and done. Great. So some of these files I've referenced in a previous version of the app or previous series. So I'm going to go ahead and copy some of the Devise views that come with the whole bit, just so it's not you watching me basically change a bunch of markup, which is pretty basic stuff. As always, you can reference the repo if you need to copy and paste yourself. We've got simple form installed. We need to do Bulma, which is installed, but we need to import the styles. I'm going to rename this file to CSS and then import Bulma. So let's see if this is working now. Yeah, there we go. So we're writing Rails at this point. We got our new awesome, what do they call it? Splash page, landing page there. So great. Bulma is ready. What else do we need to do? We need to do Devise. So let's set up Devise. And the first step with Devise is obviously install the gem. Make sure it's installed. We did that. So next we need to do generation. So Rails generate, or G, Devise, install. Okay, and then there's this set of things you have to run through and do. I've done this quite a few times, but if you read through them, you'll be all set. So let's do config, environments, development. We need to set our mailer. I'll try to increase the size for you guys. Sorry if it's unreadable. Okay, there's a little comment. We have notifications we need. I'm going to actually copy from my old project for that part. It's going to go in our layout file. So application, here's our default one. Let's go get the other window that's should be up. I guess it's not. Did I close it? I think I did. Let's open this. All right, real quick, I want to get some of this stuff because it's like self-explanatory. Like the responsiveness, we need this meta tag to kind of work with us when the device scales. So that's something I want in there. For some reason, it's not included by default in Rails projects. Don't really know why. It is open. That's funny. So open it twice. Jeez, sorry guys. So let's close one of them. And I want to get this font awesome library. Almost need a third window here. I'm going to do that. Can I do that? Yeah, cool. Okay, so here's our current project. There's our demo project. I'm going to move this one here. And we need to add this file right below our other files, actually below our main style sheet. I'll save that. And the main thing I was actually going to get is these flash notices, which is what was spit out in that command line when we ran the Devise install. Okay, so with that in place, we can kind of have that going. Let's go back here. We need to route to some sort of index. So let's just generate a home controller for now. So we can I guess one more tab. I could do it here. Rails generate scaffold or let's just do Rails generate home controller home. And let's just do an index action on that controller. That's all I want. It's going to give us some other stuff. Don't really need it all, but it's okay. Okay, so on our controller, we have the home controller now with the index action. This should be all we need there. We need to actually set that action as our home page in our routes. So if you go to config, routes, and it gives you this get home/index by default. We're just going to route to that. So home #index. And typically when you edit your routes file, you need to restart your server. So Control C here, and I'll just hit the up arrow for Rails S again. And we should see our page go white. Or it'll tell us, hey, there's no template. There we go, it's there, great. And we could tell those classes aren't a default for the browser because that is Bulma's font. So that's gives me the inclination that Bulma is ready and installed, so that's good. What else do we want to set up? So we did all the things for Devise, right? Notices, I want to generate the views. So it'll just give us all those views of which we can customize. I'm probably going to copy and paste a lot of that code, so fair warning there. But again, reference the repo to do the same. And then finally, with the Devise stuff set up, we can generate our first model for Devise to actually use. So I'm going to do Rails generate Devise user, and it should do its thing. So it creates a migration with all these parameters on the user model. So if you go into DB, you can see this stuff. It's created this giant migration file with stuff that makes Devise work. So we'll actually need to run a migration next. So you do Rails DB migrate. And there we go. So we have a user model all ready to go. Devise was smart enough to add routes for us. So if we reference our routes file again, we have Devise for users, which is great. And our model has this Devise stuff set up. There's tons of stuff you can put on this. Like you can put a confirmable method on it, and the user will have to confirm their email before they can continue, kind of thing. And you can actually set how long that process will last, like if they don't confirm it. So definitely read up on the Devise gem if you're looking for something really custom. I do know I'm going to create a custom registrations controller. When the user signs up, I want them to be able to add their actual name and not just their email, which is what comes out of the box for Devise. So I'm going to do that next. So we need to actually edit the routes file to do that. And it'll be Devise for users, and then you comma separate controllers. You can actually create a custom controller that extends from Devise. And I'm going to call it registrations. You can call it what you want. But I typically do that one. And I'm going to just create this one by hand. So to be, I'll save it as registrations controller. It'll be right there, and then I'll reference a file here, go class, registrations, Devise, and then we're extending from registrations controller end, and then we have two private methods on here. And these are defined by Devise. So this stuff is, again, all on their repo. So you might want to study up with that. But it's kind of public knowledge too if you do a Google search. So we want to add account, update, params, end. Okay, so we've got these two methods, and in them we want to do a params.require. This is all from Rails strong parameters stuff. And we're going to permit a name, which is what we want, a custom name, email, password. These come with Devise, so we're just passing them through in a password confirmation. And we can kind of just copy this for this one, but we're going to add one more. That is the current password. Okay, great. So that's one step of getting our user stuff set up. We need to actually add that parameter to our database. So we can do that next. I'm gonna make sure the schema, if you look at the schema, you can kind of see what's on the database. Okay, so we can run a migration at this point where we add fields to the users table. So let's do that. Rails generate migration. And I'll just do it, add fields to users. And you can pass in name string. Let's see if that automatically did it for us. Users name string, yep, that's what we want. So I'll go ahead and run that migration. Oh, not generate. Rails DB migrate. So now it's in there. Again, if we look at the schema, you'll see a new string name there. You don't want to edit this file directly. Definitely read this comment to see why. But it just kind of, it's nice for reference. Okay, so with that done, I think we should be able to go ahead and use Devise and set up users and all of that stuff. What I want to do first is, why don't we scaffold our shots controller? And we could start hashing this thing out. So the actual shots are going to have controller shot, and it's going to, I'm going to do just this scaffold actually, not a controller. So generate scaffold, and then I'm going to capitalize this, and the shot's going to have a few parameters, a title and a description. So title will be string, and a description will be a text field. While we're at it, we can add a user ID, which is an integer, since we're using Devise, and a user shot, which we'll get into when we do the uploads. So if this is confusing, I'm just kind of doing things a little bit differently just to add these things. And in fact, I'm going to leave the user shot off for now, but I do want to add the user ID. So let's generate that scaffold, and we should be set. So it generated pretty much everything for us. We can go ahead and check that generation and see what happened there. We got the things we want on there. So title, description, our timestamps come by default, and our user ID is there too. So great. So we can actually already have references to the user on the shot. So if we go to our models and into the user model first, we can do has many shots. And then on the shot, we can say belongs to user. And I suppose we could do on the shot, we could, or the user, we could do dependent destroy. And this will essentially say, okay, if the user count gets deleted, then so will all of the shots associated with that account. So it's kind of a nice to have. Okay, so before I go way deeper, I'll start hashing out our layout and kind of get things set. Looks like I need to run a migration. Rails DB migrate, that's what I'm after. Awesome. So if all went right, we can probably load this page. We're routing to the home index, which isn't where we want to now, since we did the shots scaffold. Let's go ahead and change that to what we want it to be, which is shots index on config routes. And so yeah, root will be shots index resources shots was added when we did that scaffold. We'll come back to this file once we add comments as well as likes and unlikes. It's going to affect our routes at that point, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to restart my server once more. And I'll head back to this terminal, and then I'll go back to the browser and see if it displays for us. Great. So I can at this point create a new shot. It's got some crappy looking stuff going on, but everything's there. I don't want to have the user ID in the forms, so we can just get rid of that, but that's not a big deal. So let me go back to the show page, views. Now we have shots and all of these files in there. When you run a scaffold, it really takes the cake and makes things easier for you, though it generates tables, which is kind of annoying, but it gets the jobs done. I'm going to delete some of this stuff and just start to add our own. So the show one is the main one. I'm going to get rid of the user ID for now. And the notice, since we have that in our layout file. And on these JSONs, the partial, I don't want to pass the user ID. We won't really make use of JSON, but that is something to keep in mind if you were to do any Ajaxing kind of stuff going on. Okay, great. So a lot of the markup in this, I'm going to primarily copy and paste since this isn't what it's about. So I want you guys to just kind of get the Rails experience more so than the actual HTML side of it. So I may fast forward through some parts, but let's go ahead and start with the application layout file, getting it squared away. So I'm going to actually reference the other project right now and add our navbar, which has essentially all of our user login kind of stuff going on. Okay, great. So there's one thing, when you generate a scaffold, it throws some styles in the mix that are called scaffold, and those conflict with everything, so definitely delete those if you're following along. All right, so we had a generated home style. We don't really need that. The shots one I'll probably keep just for sorting out specific styles as we go. So let's continue on the layout file, see if there's anything else I need. Nope, okay. So the next one is going to be the Devise files. This is going to be pretty straightforward, essentially just adding all this extra markup so it looks a little bit more presentable. I'm going to just go down the list and you guys can follow along if you want. If not, definitely check the repo out. All right, so we have basically the markup set up at this point. So I have sign up, I have sign in. If you go to forgot password, it'll have its own form here, and it's basically the markup is responsible for just centering this form and not making it full width, as well as making these inputs look and play well with simple form. So if this is kind of going fast for you, definitely check out the previous series I've done, and you'll see what actually went all into making these form fields play well with Bulma. A big thing I want to change right away are these brand colors. Obviously Dribbble is known for the pink color as their accent, so I think I want to go ahead and add that in. This is also going to be more or less copying and pasting from the old project, simply because it's not the focus. So I'm going to look into App, Assets, Style Sheets, Application. And a neat thing with Bulma is when you do import it, you can set variables before you import it that dictate the same variable properties and names. So in this case, the primary color I'm changing to the Dribbble pink, which I stole from the site, as well as some link colors and elements and stuff like that. Not a big switch, but it's something to note. So I'm going to go ahead and basically just copy this file in. I'm going to go back to this file. So let's open application and just paste in what I copied. Oops. So that should give us the general styles of the app. So now our primary color is pink, as well as like when you hover into these form fields. So that's pretty nice. It looks like we have everything set up in terms of users. Let me go ahead and create an account. Make sure that works. Oh, I actually have to sign up. Duh. So let's make this my name and then Andy at WebCrunch. And I'll sign up. All goes right. We should be good to go. That looks like it's not working right there. But let's see what that's all about. I think maybe I copied and pasted wrong. Let's look into the layout file. Edit user registration path, current user.name. So apparently I don't have the name. Let's debug this real quick. So Rails console. If you do Rails C, you can go into a console mode, which is kind of where you tinker with stuff. So I'm going to grab the user. You have to do this user.connection thing. Yikes. Just clear that, and then you can go mess with this. So if I could do user equals user, so that sets it to user. So at user.last, it was me. It looks like the name didn't save though, so maybe something is up that I didn't quite remember. Let me think here. So we have our registrations controller. It's permitting these. So after some trial and error, I finally found the culprit, and it was a typo. This needed to be controllers in my routes file for Devise to recognize the registrations controller we created. So I'm going to delete this first line and focus on that second. So at this point, the whole problem was that the username, the new name field that we created on these views and the registrations controller were permitting the name so we can add to what Devise didn't already come with, wasn't being saved. So on the views, it's pulling back the actual link instead of the actual name of what I want. So my name should be displaying there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete the last two users. So I'm going to do user equals at user.last at user.destroy, and then at user equals at user.last or at user.find. If we could just look by one, there's the first one. So I'm going to delete that one as well, just because I don't want to have no name on those. Oops. because the name is set to nil, if you can see right there, and I want it to actually have a value. So we're starting from scratch at this point. I'm going to exit out of here, clear this, go back to the UI, and we'll go to the front page to sign up. We'll start it again, see if this works. Give me a name, give me a name. Dang it. Still not working. Oh, you know why? I needed to restart the server. So let's do that. Once more, I will delete that user. Sorry, this is such a cluster, guys. So yeah, user.connection. Clear that at user equals user.last. Let's do at user again. User.last and at user.destroy. Okay, clear that. Control D in this case. And once more, let's try it again. So sign up. What is going on? Current user.name, it should be right. I'm wondering why this won't work. Okay, so it's getting passed through unpermitted parameter names. Why is it unpermitted? Am I typing it wrong still? Let's, for safety's sake, I'm gonna copy my entire controller from the old project, or the demo project, and paste it in here and see if that makes any bit of difference. I may have made another typo I just was not seeing. So let's do that, and for good quality's sake, I'll restart the server once more. I will also do that deletion again. And let's try once more. There, it worked. So basically name was a permitted parameter at that point. I must have had a typo in that controller, so definitely watch out for that stuff, guys. Little things like that can come up and bite you, and you could spend hours trying to troubleshoot. So I think I'll stop this first one here. The next few episodes, I would say, will be more or less getting our shots going. We have our general UI in place. I'll need to copy some HTML over on our shots page. Right now, we don't have any way to create a new shot besides this one, which actually works, but you'll see our forms are looking kind of rough. So we will tweak that and get the image uploads working and all of that stuff coming up. I'll see you then.